Have you ever noticed a specific shift in the atmosphere during a meeting? It usually happens about 20 minutes in. The specific updates are finished. The immediate problems are put aside. And then the conversation turns toward the future. The person leading the room stops talking about tasks or deadlines or projects and starts talking about the big picture. You start hearing words like alignment, synergy, and structural health. Everyone in the room nods. You nod too. You understand the logic. You know that for any large group to survive, there has to be a strategy. But if you pay close attention to your body in that exact moment, you might notice something else. There is a quiet, subtle retraction in your chest. A very faint alarm bell ringing in the back of your mind. A distinct drop in your sense of safety. It isn't because you disagree with the plan. It isn't because you are rebellious. It is because you have intuitively realized something that is almost never said out loud. You have realized that the moment the focus shifts to the whole, the part loses its right to be protected. And in that moment you sense, even if you can't prove it, that you have just been converted from a person into a variable. That anxiety you feel. It is a highly accurate instrument. It is your survival instinct recognizing a change in the physics of your environment. I want to explore that feeling today, not to make you angry, but simply to explain why. Even when you are doing everything right, you still feel that low-frequency hum of insecurity. To understand it, we need to change our vantage point. Think about standing on a busy city sidewalk. When you are down there, the resolution is high. You see faces. You see individuals. You see a person drinking coffee, a child waiting for a bus, a driver tapping their fingers on the steering wheel. Now, imagine looking at that same city from an airplane window at 30,000 feet. You don't see faces anymore. You don't see individuals. You see traffic patterns. From 30,000 feet, you are looking at the big picture. If a road needs to be widened to improve the traffic flow for the whole city, it is a rational decision. It makes sense for the system, but for the house that sits next to that road, it is a catastrophe. When leadership talks about the big picture, they are speaking from the airplane, and you are standing on the sidewalk. This is the source of that quiet unease. The logic governing your future is no longer about your performance. It is no longer about whether you are good at your job. The calculation becomes about redundancy, because it means you can do everything right. You can be the perfect employee, and you can still be negatively affected. You feel unsafe because your goodness is no longer the thing that protects you. It isn't just the fear of being cut. It is the demand for your empathy. In modern work culture, we are rarely told to just do what we are told. Instead, we are asked to understand. We are invited to understand the market headwinds and the difficulty of the choices being made. It sounds like respect, it feels like inclusion. But functionally, it is a mechanism that disarms you. When you are trained to understand the difficulties of the whole, you begin to internalize the system's problems as your own personal problems. Think about how many times you have wanted to ask for something you deserved, a raise. But then you stopped yourself. You said, now isn't the right time. The budget is tight. The team is already stressed. I shouldn't add to the burden. You see what happens. You become the enforcer of your own suppression. You trade your right to negotiate for the praise of being understanding. This is why the most reliable people often carry the heaviest unspoken stress. You have absorbed the logic of the structure so deeply that protecting your own interests starts to feel like an act of betrayal. You aren't just working a job, you are paying an emotional tax. And this leads us to the final, and perhaps the most uncomfortable realization. It is the question of who absorbs the shock. When the big picture changes, when the market turns, when the strategy pivots, how does the system choose where to cut? There is a common belief that if you are valuable, you are safe. That if you create value, the system will protect you. But structural analysis tells us something different. When a system needs to absorb shock, it follows the path of least resistance. It does not look for the guilty parties. It looks for the absorbent parties. Think about the difficult people in your organization. The ones who argue, the ones who are loud, the ones who create friction. Moving them is hard. It causes noise. Now think about the stable people, the ones who always understand the big picture, the ones who say, I'll make it work, the ones who are reasonable. who is easier to move. It is a dark irony, but in a structural calculation, stability is often misinterpreted as the capacity to endure loss. If the system needs to cut a piece to save the whole, it will often choose the piece that detaches with the cleanest edge. It will choose the piece that won't destroy the rest of the machine on its way out. You made yourself the most efficient place for the system to offload its stress. The anxiety you feel during those Unity meetings, that is your subconscious recognizing this mechanic. You sense that your reliability has transformed. It is no longer an asset. It has become a vulnerability. You have become the Crumple Zone designed to collapse, so the passengers in the main cabin remain safe. It isn't personal malice. The system doesn't hate you. It just calculated that you were the one who would break the most quietly. So, where does this leave us, if you are listening to this, and you feel a heavy, dull ache of recognition? Let it sit there. I am not telling you this to make you bitter. I am not telling you to quit your job tomorrow or to become toxic. That isn't the answer. I am simply trying to explain the silence. I want to validate that feeling you have carried in meetings for years. That tension isn't a flaw in your character. It isn't a lack of vision. It isn't a failure of resilience. It is a moment of clarity. You have realized that in the narrative of the big picture, the protagonist is the system, not you. You have realized that being asked to trust the process often means being asked to relinquish your control over your own outcome. It is a heavy realization, but it is necessary. Perhaps the unease doesn't come from a fear of failing. Perhaps it comes from the quiet, clear knowledge that you are doing your job perfectly, but you are no longer sure if you are the player sitting at the table or the chips being wagered in the pot. And usually the moment you realize you are the chips is the first moment you can finally start trying to leave the table.